I, a female teen, was in hospital until a few days ago because of my heart. I was born with a heart condition and I got sick again a few weeks ago. I had surgery and now I'm recovering and already doing way better. While I was in the hospital, I had a fight with my mom and her husband, but mostly my mom, and I needed some perspective on whether I was wrong or not. Some background. My dad was in an accident when I was 6. He suffered terrible brain damage and was not the same person he used to be. He's not able to take care of himself. He needs a wheelchair and he had to learn to talk again, but that came slowly and after a lot of years. He's improved in recent years, but he's permanently disabled and he has a bunch of health problems that came from the accident. My mom and dad were married when the accident happened, but after dad was made permanently disabled, my mom divorced dad. He's taken care of by my uncle, his brother. Mom told me it was in our best interest to move on. My mom ended up marrying a guy named Jason. When she told me she was dating him, I called her a bunch of names and didn't take it well. I also didn't take the news of the divorce easily either. I was so angry. Mom told me it was better for us. So Jason moved in and they got married. Then we found out he had a preschool boy. He didn't know and she moved in. Then Mom and Jason had 2 kids together. One big issue I have is that my mom expected me to see Jason as my new dad, and she encouraged me to let dad go and rely on Jason instead. She tried to cut me off from dad, but the courts didn't like that, and even though he doesn't have custody where I live in his house, I get to see him several times a month per the courts. My mom thinks I would be healthier and better if I let Jason be my dad. Jason told me a few times about how much it offends him that I would rather have someone who can never be a dad to me again over him. I'm not very close to my stepsister or half-siblings either. I know none of this is their fault, but I don't spend much time at home, and I don't want to be around them because it means being around either Mom or Jason. So anyway, when I was in the hospital and they told me about the surgery, I called my uncle and asked if Dad could come and see me and be there for some of it. My mom didn't like that, and she told me she didn't want the other kids to see my dad because of the way he was. I told her they didn't have to see him, but I wanted to. My mom told me that meant my siblings couldn't be there, and I told her I would rather have my dad than them there, that he's my dad. I told her I would pick Dad over her and Jason too. I told her she might have declared him worthless because of his disability, but he will always be my dad, and she better accept it or she'll lose me. My dad was with me before surgery and when I woke up. Mom is still angry about what I said. She held on to it until I got home from the hospital, but she said my siblings felt so rejected by what I said. Am I the idiot? Not the idiot. Your mom is not a good person. Not only for dumping your dad, but for forcing Jason on you, who is also bad for forcing himself, but for also repeating what you said to your siblings and driving a wedge between you guys. That was messed up and cruel. Those kids should never have heard that. There was no reason. You're not wrong for needing your dad. And it's disgusting how she tries to erase your dad from your life for her own convenience. Your mom is on the road to losing you completely. Jason had better hope that nothing would happen to him, otherwise he'd be better prepared to be tossed to the curb like a broken toy like the first husband. You can't just disconnect your dad and plug in a new one. Your dad will always be your dad, whether he can act in a parental capacity or not. She didn't take the in sickness and in health part of her wedding vows seriously either. Yeah, your mom is horrible. It sounds like she has a disgusting attitude towards people with disabilities like they shouldn't exist. Try to make sure to not punish your siblings for how your mom and Jason are. They're really not at fault here, but you must be prepared for the possibility that they will be treated better by your mom and Jason than you. Get better soon. My 39 female daughter recently had her nearly adult birthday. My husband, 42, and I told her to pick a restaurant she'd like us to take her to for her birthday. She chose a seafood restaurant that we'd never been to. Looking over the menu, I saw that most dishes contained shellfish. There are a few fish entrees and some surf and turf, but there are only a couple of non-seafood dishes. Our son Teen is deathly allergic to shellfish. He also can't stand fish. There are only a couple of dishes there that he could eat. I didn't want to take him there because I knew he wouldn't enjoy his meal and worried about cross-contamination. I told my daughter that this restaurant wouldn't work and that she'd have to pick a different one. My son said that he would be fine just staying home. We could use the money that we would have spent on his meal to order him a pizza instead. My husband also insisted that since it was our daughter's birthday, she should be able to choose the restaurant, that our son would be fine at home alone with pizza and video games. But here's the thing, we can only afford to occasionally go out as a family. When we splurge on a restaurant meal, I want both of our children there. I insisted and my daughter chose a different place and we had a lovely meal as a family. But she's still a little salty that she didn't have her first choice of restaurant. Most people I've asked say I'm wrong. But again, we can only afford to go out every so often. Is it so bad that I wanted to do it as a family? My daughter still had a nice birthday meal. You are the idiot. If you were going to put parameters on her choice, you should have told her that beforehand. You seem more hung up on the fact that your son wouldn't like the food than his allergy. Your son's preferences are irrelevant. This is your daughter's day. He seems to understand that, but you don't. I get that you want to have a family meal, but all you've done is tell your daughter that she's not worth individual celebration. This could have been an excellent opportunity for you and your husband to have personal time with your older teen, a rare opportunity. Instead, you squandered that, created unnecessary conflict, and possibly formed resentment between your daughter and her brother. The son clearly would have preferred a night alone with pizza and video games, so I highly doubt his sister will resent him. It's not about prioritizing the son over the daughter because the son was okay with staying home. It prioritized OP's own wants over what anybody else in the family wanted. Essentially, you decided what you wanted was more important than anyone else, and would you look at that, you got what you wanted because your word is law. Screw the birthday girl's choice, right? You made your daughter's birthday about your wants. Why even pretend she had a choice in where to go? You dangled the illusion of choice before her, then overruled her for what you wanted anyway. I, 38 female, third-wheeled with my best friend, 39 female, and her new boyfriend, 40, on New Year's Eve. We booked an Airbnb and I put the entire amount on my card since only I have an account. This was the first time I met him too, so I know little about him and have barely interacted with him. Let's call them Andy and Anna. Afterwards, she paid her third somewhat quickly. I did have to prompt after 2 weeks. She said she was going to get her boyfriend's share and then forward that to me. I said okay, but I honestly felt like the right thing would have been for her to give me both their portions and then get payment from him. I would have done that, and my boyfriend, who didn't join us, agreed. I found out later that he got upset with her because he's frugal and she made it sound like it would be a lot cheaper. She chose the place, then told me which one to book. Anyway, they had a fight, and then she said she was going to wait for things to cool down before broaching the subject of payment again. Once again, I'm annoyed because I felt like it should have been her responsibility to cover for him ASAP instead of putting me in this weird position where I had to wait for him to pay her and then for her to pay me. It's like playing telephone with money, and I'm just hanging in limbo. They've been fighting a lot, so the payment topic got quickly left in the dust. It's been 2 months, and they've both forgotten about it. I reached out to her on Sunday, early March, and she was shocked to realize that it still hadn't been paid. I believe her surprise because she can be forgetful. I don't think she's intentionally ducking me. She said she talked to him this week and I thanked her. But honestly, I'm angry because they're a unit and I think his share of the payment was her responsibility to me. At our age, this etiquette should be a given. She doesn't seem to realize I'm an outsider being put in an awkward position. Instead, her point of view seems to be that we're 3 individuals with equal social distance from each other, so once she paid her own share, she forgot about how much he owed me. This would have been understandable if I was also friends with her boyfriend, but I'm not. It's been 2 months. When I owe people money, I set a reminder and pay as soon as possible. If I can't pay immediately, I take it upon myself to reach out weekly to say I haven't forgotten. In this case, I had to chase her down. So it feels like she put the onus of remembering on me when it should have been hers to carry. Also, she should have paid both their shares. There are some things that I am trying to be understanding of. Work is toxic to her, and she's been having health issues with an upcoming surgery next month. Not major, but still scary. She's also been fighting with her boyfriend. I'm trying to give her grace, but I also think this isn't cool. Am I the idiot if I ask her to just pay me with her own money and then figure it out with him on her own time? Not the idiot for telling your friend that you need to be paid and at this point you don't care by whom, her or him. But you are the idiot because you should have gotten the funds before going on the trip or saying something that weekend. Hey guys, why don't we settle the final balance now? You rented an Airbnb for New Year's Eve. He's not paying back what he already used. Boyfriend is 40, not a teen. At 40, who thinks they must explain to other 40-year-old adults that they have to pay their share? He just doesn't want to pay. Just eat up the money lost and rethink this friendship. You're correct, OP may have to consider it gone. It sounds like he's either hoping Anna will pay or he's hoping that it's just forgotten about and you end up paying for it. OP, their relationship is not your problem, so don't bother tiptoeing with her. Tell her to pay up. Where she gets it from is not your problem. If she refuses because she doesn't want to be the bad guy in their relationship, me, personally, I tell her to give me his number and I go after him and put some social pressure on him. Whatever. And if both relationships go up in flames over reneging over the deal, so be it. I have two much younger twin siblings, Ben, 19, and Zoe, 19 female. They don't get along and are always fighting. It gets so bad that my mom once secretly told me she regrets having more children. She was joking, I think. I believe they're both equally at fault, as does Mom, but our dad dotes on Zoe a lot and believes Ben is just a stupid delinquent. For context, Zoe is more well-behaved than Ben, and she's currently in college doing a pretty tough program. I'm very proud of her. She worked hard for it. Ben really doesn't want to go back to school and shuts down every conversation related to it. He's also a painter and is always drawing or painting. He's slightly stubborn and should be thinking more about his future. Not school necessarily, but ultimately it's his choice. Still, he can only survive on little part-time jobs for a while. Anyway, my parents invited my husband and me to dinner and we said sure. I could tell Ben and Zoe were fighting when we arrived, but they said nothing. Then we sat for dinner and Zoe announced that Ben had gotten a girl pregnant. My dad went red and wouldn't even hear Ben out. It all happened so fast, but Dad went into Ben's room and threw all his art stuff out the window. He even took his guitar and locked it somewhere in the basement. He also called Ben several names. I've literally never seen Ben cry like that. When Ben finally managed to speak, he clarified that it was just a scare. No girl is currently pregnant with his child. He's now locked himself in his room and hasn't even left to go to work, according to my mom. I'm so incredibly heartbroken for him. My dad doesn't care that he misunderstood because the scare is just as bad to him, and Zoe doesn't feel an ounce of regret either. She said everyone was saying it and she only brought it up out of concern. She thinks he deserves to have his things destroyed because he lives in a fantasy land. Because of this, I've stopped giving my sister money. I gave her a lot of pocket money to spend on herself as a treat. I do the same with my brother, but I've stopped for her. My mom gets it, but my dad won't stop calling me to yell at me for playing favourites, punishing my sister for doing the right thing and rewarding my brother for being a bum. I told him I wouldn't speak to him anymore, and he just told me he was disappointed. My husband thinks I should have talked it out some more, but I genuinely think they went too far this time. Some of the stuff my dad trashed was things Ben created almost 10 years ago, and the way Zoe smiled the whole time honestly creeped me out. Am I the idiot? Not the idiot, OMG, so many serious issues. Your siblings are lucky to have you trying to look out for them. You are in the right. Dad is playing favourites. I wonder if your brother is dealing with multiple issues. It can take men a little longer to find their footing in young adulthood. It isn't always a laziness. Your sister is a little meanie bully. She did that on purpose to hurt him. But this goes way too far. I wouldn't give her a penny until she apologises and changes her behaviour. Why reward her antics? My dad won't stop calling me to yell at me for playing favourites. Oh, that's rich. He's been spoiling his little princess for years, hasn't he? And been an idiot to his son the whole time too? Is your brother a bum? Maybe. Is living an art fantasy? Maybe. In this instant, though, nothing was his fault. But your sister is absolutely a spoiled and malicious little idiot. And your dad is, well, not a good parent. Zoe is just awful. I can understand a couple of 8-year-old siblings trying to get each other in trouble with mommy and daddy, but she's an adult. What a horrible human being. I hope Ben was able to rescue some of his artwork, even if it's not intact. I wonder if there's any possibility Ben could stay with OP for a while if they put a plan in place for him to become self-sufficient. Getting out of that house and away from those people may be all he needs to get his head straight and figure out what he wants to do. He can't keep living in that house forever, working part-time jobs. I, 25 male, and my girlfriend, 26, were together for about a year. I decided to break up with her after learning some uncomfortable things about the before we were exclusive. We had a long flirt and talking phase for about 3 months. We went on several dates and mostly texted online. In the last month of that phase, she seemed distant and dodged questions from my side about the relationship. I told her we're 3 months into the talking phase, have been to dates, and we should decide if we want to go forward. She always dodged these kind of questions. After being distant for a while, she returned to her old self and told me we should be exclusive. I agreed. Last week, I learned from one of her friends what she'd been doing during that distant period. Apparently, she was talking to another guy and pushing to get him. The guy hooked up with her and ghosted her. I think that explains why she was distant and came back randomly. Call me insecure all you want, maybe I am, but it feels wrong to me. I was the second choice according to this story. Was I no different than a spare part? I talked to her about it and consulted with my friends. She and her girlfriends told me she hooked up and talked to other guys but ultimately chose you. You are the prize and you should be happy. Women tend to choose the best one among their opportunities and you're the best. I cannot even comprehend that logic. In the end, I decided to break up and people told me I did wrong. Am I the idiot? Not the idiot. Would she be with you if the other guy hadn't ghosted her? I'm thinking no. Your girlfriend and female friends are full of it. She didn't choose you. The other guy ditched her, so there was no longer a choice. When they said, "You are the prize," consolation was silent. This is why this long "we're not exclusive yet" thing that has become the norm invites problems. In my view, if you go on a third date, you should be exclusive and not try different people for months on end. The same goes for "we're on a break." You break up or you don't. If we break up, I don't want to see your face anymore, although we can be amicable. An ex is an ex for a reason. Old-fashioned maybe, but whatever.